Well, Dr. Bourla, thank you for being here.
Albert Keith is better.
I guess I'll take you up on that. So not mentioned in my introduction was the fact that after 20 years as an academic oncologist, in March of 2020, I was asked to assemble and direct our COVID-19 clinical and translational research program at Mass General. And being the large research hospital that it is, that ended up constituting maybe 300 faculty, much less staff and other supporters of that program. So having lived through that and having stepped away from oncology because of that fundamental disruption, thank you for both the vaccine and Paxlovid. But also thank you for what was an extraordinary shift in how Pfizer did business at the time in terms of really kind of suspending all other activities in a way and directing so many resources. You know, I don't want to torture you about the sort of lessons learned coming out of COVID questions, although I'm tempted. Rather, you know, I'd like to maybe try to get a sense from you of, you know, now that we are kind of well coming out of COVID, what is your, you know, your view of sort of the R&D landscape, the opportunities, you know, to think about next therapeutic leaps, such as an RNA vaccine afforded. So just in terms of sort of modalities, independent of area of application, sort of what's got you most excited? What do you have your teams, you know, sort of scouting out these days?
Mm-hmm. Thank you for being here and good morning, everyone. I think that in the last 2 decades, there are some mega trends that they are accelerating significantly in the last few years, 2-3 years, that they are shaping the drug discovery and development. The first one, it is advancements in biology. We know now way more things than what we knew a few years back for critical diseases. Some therapeutic areas like cancer, the knowledge, it is really very detailed. We know what causes cancer, it's different cancer, why cancer cells are getting resistance to medicines. We know a lot of these things. And in some others, we are scratching the surface, like neuroscience, where the science is exponentially growing, but still we are not certain what really causes Alzheimer's. There are a lot of hypotheses about it. The second trend, it is advancements in technology, and with most notable one, the AI. And the two of them, biology and technology, they are colliding together to create synergistic effects of imaginable ways. And there is the third trend that is very typical in this country, in the US, that the only twin that now is coming to develop it is China. And this is the life sciences ecosystem that has been developed in this country. And that's an ecosystem that is composed by academia, by biotech companies, by biopharmaceutical companies like us, and by private equity, because unfortunately it's not goodwill that will find cancer cure. It is a lot of money, and money from people that they are willing to risk their money 100 times before one time they will see a success. So really high-risk investments. But all of these three are coming together in this country, and they are creating significant opportunities. Where I see the opportunities, where biology is more advanced, I see way more opportunities. And where I see opportunities in the ways that we are going to integrate digital technologies into the whole continuum of drug discovery and development.
Okay, the digital technologies landing spot is an interesting one. You know, one thing that I have wondered in the US, Europe particularly, as academics and academic institutions trying to play our part, you know, what is missing? What is the bottleneck, if you will, in terms of interrogating data, you know, clinical data, molecular data, you know, imaging data, pathology data, sort of assembling multimodal data sets, what do you see as the limiting factor in terms of, well, A, doing the work, and B, interpreting?
Yeah. Frankly, I think the limit is the sky, and we will do significant advancements in that field. Now, what can accelerate that, what is standing in the way? I don't think that the data are as easily available because data are sitting in different centers that they don't communicate necessarily with them. There are a lot of efforts, though, in the last few years to bring them together. That's an important thing. There is another set of data that I think are sitting in companies like us. If you see the number of failures and successes that we had, but you are learning more from your failures over the last 30 years. People usually see because we are publishing the successes. They don't see because we don't make public all the data that are driving a failure. But those could be significant asset as we are trying to develop new medicines. And I think our efforts in the last few years was to make sure that we put in a data lake everything that has happened in the last decades in Pfizer, from failures to successes. And also to build a critical computational infrastructure, because also use of AI requires significant power in computing, which is not easily available because everybody is asking it. So I think those two things that we try to do probably will position us well into being able to find something meaningful in drug discovery from AI.
Well, thank you for that. There's another comment you made in your opening comments there that I've been mindful of, which is this sort of the benefits of concentrating talent and capital and technologies in, co-localizing them, if you will, even in a digitally enabled communication world. Having lived in this community for 15 years, there is something quite special about the concentration of talent, technology, and capital here. What is your sense, U.S. versus other major markets and even beyond? Are we ultimately, are we underpowered currently in terms of biotech hubs? We had San Francisco, in the first instance and still today. Then came Cambridge, San Diego. But other than that, it strikes me that there have been sort of frustrated efforts, both elsewhere in the U.S. and beyond, to try to co-localize talent, capital, and technology.
This is true. A good example is New York, that is trying very hard to create a biotech hub. And they haven't, and they have done, we have done, because we are in New York, tremendous progress into that. But we haven't reached, let's say, the critical mass that Cambridge or the West Coast has in San Francisco and La Jolla and in San Diego. But I think the US, it is, one thing I will say is not that it is underpowered, the biotech community. It's very, very good. Other countries are trying. France is trying very intensively to develop it. UK had it already, but their policies towards innovation, when it comes to utilization of innovation, they are the worst in the world, not in Europe, in the world. So that has created a backslash. So a lot of research has left UK. I think now, after the Brexit, they try to reinvigorate it. And I wish them good luck because they have very good science there, but they don't have an ecosystem anymore. And the ones that are emerging as phenomenal strategic in building that is Chinese. The Chinese are trying to bring together their local capital with their local institutions with talented individuals that have been trained in the US. They have programs that they relocate back. They're good scientists. They have the right IP protections. We discussed maybe a lot about China not respecting intellectual property, but when it comes to medicines, which is so important, they are very protective. They have built their local FDA to the next level. It was one of the worst, and now it is trying to mimic the successes of FDA, so it's doing very well. And all of that makes the investors not being hesitating to put their money, because they know that there will be meritocracy with an FDA that works on merits, and there will be protection of whatever they will be able to do because there is IP protection, and the government wants them to do it. So they have Shanghai and Beijing now, two major hubs. Actually, they have the number of biotechs in China is bigger than in the US right now.
And so do you see that as potentially joining the global community in terms of that sort of firepower, that ultimately leads to population-wide benefit? Do you see it being as becoming a somewhat sequestered effort in service of China or potentially other markets, but not overlapping with our
I think in drug discovery, the global nature is very clear. And I think that it will be tremendous opportunity for mankind, for humankind, if we find ways to coordinate. I know that China and the US are adversaries in several areas, and some of them will never, let's say, I don't expect that will be resolved anytime soon. But when it comes to finding a new medicine for cancer that we couldn't find, I don't see why it matters if we work together with the Chinese. And I hope that we will see better collaboration in that field.
Point taken. So it's, from my oncology view of the world, I've watched Pfizer's strategic maneuvers the past handful of years, one being the Seattle Genetics acquisition, Seagen. And I'm interested in maybe using that to kind of broaden the question about what excites you and your scientists in terms of therapeutic modality innovation. So let's use the Seagen acquisition as an example of targeted delivery as a broad theme. Obviously, there's other iterations there, but I guess thinking between that type of modality, RNA therapeutics, cell therapies, where do you see, and then chemistry advances, broadly construed, being able to degrade targets, being able to induce proximity with molecular glues, and be able to do things that even, at least clinically 5 years ago, we couldn't even have imagined as possible. Where would you point to say, okay, well, many of these things are interesting, but what's really ready for prime time, what's really going to translate in the near term in Pfizer's view?
Look, modalities are increasingly becoming a very tough choice because there are so many of them. And actually selecting the right one, I think it is what makes is more interesting. Is even more important now than in the past, that you have few options and then you were trying all of them. For example, in our case, we were very experienced in adenovirus technologies, in conjugated vaccines technologies, in protein, and we selected a technology that never has given a vaccine at that time, which was the mRNA. That was a fundamental, excellent choice. We didn't invest much in mRNA in cancer, although we have built all this infrastructure and knowledge about mRNA, and we have very big cancer group, because we made another strategic choice with our scientists that the most exciting technology is ADCs. That's why we acquired Seagen, which is, it was a unique opportunity, a unique asset, because it was nothing like that present and available to be purchased, that has not only 4 products in the market, but more importantly, 13 products in the pipeline, and a know-how, intellectual property, let's say, assets around ADCs. And we knew when we acquired them that the key success factor will be how we integrate Seagen into Pfizer, because what was part of the success of Seagen was this entrepreneurial, non-bureaucratic style that they had. And it is always very risky when you bring a company like that into a very big conglomerate like Pfizer, that they will lose their edge. We put tremendous effort not to avoid that. We created an oncology end-to-end division so that they are as much protected by reporting directly to me from the corporate bureaucracy. We were able to select the best from the two worlds. And if you see the leadership team of Chris Boshoff, who is heading our oncology, 6 are from Seagen and 4 from Pfizer. So it was not who is acquiring, it is who is the best for the jobs. And I think I'm very fascinated with that. So my answer to that, it is not all modalities are equally important for all diseases. But for each disease, there are 1 or 2 that will probably give the best results. It was the same when we tried to select what will make a difference in the antiviral with Paxlovid. It was the same when we selected GLP-1. It's another story if our molecule failed, right? And then we went to the second generation, which is danuglipron, which looks very promising, and we will bring it to the clinic. But we had one that was even more advanced. But we had selected the GLP-1 when people, only Lilly and Novo, were believing into that. We were already advanced years back. So I think it's extremely important, your ability to select the right technology for the right disease.
Well, I could ask only oncology questions, but that wouldn't do justice to the breadth of Pfizer's much broader ambition. So maybe, thinking of other therapeutic areas, maybe same type of question. I mean, where do you see sort of the efforts to translate science to medicine accelerating most? I always saw oncology as playing the role that it did in terms of deep molecular understanding, using that to really create molecular medicines, still a work in progress, as partly relating to the fact that we could interrogate the disease quite directly and develop deep molecular data sets, and now overlaying on top of that even functional screens and insights that I think might take us to the next level. But interrogating disease directly when it comes to neurological disorders, much more challenging. I mean, imaging, being sort of a dependent technology or strategy there, at least as one factor, as an outsider, seems to be limiting. But again, turn that around to a positive. Where else in your therapeutic area focus do you see the most inroads?
My view it is that there are many therapeutic areas. The ones that will advance faster are the ones that science is more advanced, and we mentioned oncology. It's not the only one, though, right? Yeah. So I think our understanding of the immune system has also gained a lot of momentum in the last several years, which means that I see 2 areas really growing very nicely. One, it is vaccines, because it's about the immune system. Our vaccines group is probably one of the few crown jewels that we have in Pfizer. They are right now working on next generation pneumococcal vaccines. We have a very exciting vaccine in phase 2 that there is no vaccine against that for C. diff, C. difficile. We have a phase 3 for Lyme disease that is going. Lyme disease is going to get way more important than today because global warming is moving towards the north. And that is changing the landscape. So a lot of ticks start to appear in areas that before of the cold, they were not there. So a Lyme vaccine, I can go on and on. In immune inflammation also, it is an area that it is extremely important. We have in phase 2 a trispecific antibody that I think is extremely good. I know people had discussed many times why we gave TL1A, and we had our reasons. But there is also a follow-on molecule of TL1A that it is in phase 1 right now that we have. So it's another area that I think will be extremely important. And the third, what we have seen nowadays, such a big advancement in metabolic diseases. The GLP-1s, they are, let's say, taking over the world, not only because the need, it's huge, but also because they deliver. So ourselves, in metabolic diseases, we are covering both ends of the spectrum. We have programs for obesity, and we have programs for cachexia. Cachexia is the exact opposite of obesity. It's people losing weight and dying because of that. Cancer patients, but not only, geriatric patients, etc. For cachexia, we just presented at ESMO very encouraging results of a molecule that was able to succeed not only in gaining weight, which was the primary endpoint, but also in improving physical activity of the individuals, which was secondary endpoints. And then on the other spectrum, in obesity, we announced that we had positive results on trying to make danuglipron from twice a day, once a day, that we think will improve the competitiveness of the molecule. And we are now trying to finalize the dose so that we can go into phase 3 next year. So I think those are some of the areas that we are working very intensively.
So I asked a question about Seagen, which was a sort of ingestion of technology into Pfizer, infusing new technology into Pfizer. But Pfizer, of course, has had a deep commitment to its own R&D efforts in terms of developing next generation medicines. You alluded to a couple of them there, outside of oncology. I guess what I've been fascinated to watch over time as Pfizer, the dawn of my career, was becoming a nationwide conglomerate almost of companies that basically the weaving those together ultimately and creating essentially sort of a durable, consistent strategy was reflected with the CDK4/6 focus, where Pfizer played the leading role. It was a long haul to get palbociclib through clinical development and ultimately market. But a really astonishing clinical result that was presented now a year and a half ago was Pfizer's internal CDK4 selective inhibitor. Still investigational, but nonetheless, the clinical data, quite striking to suggest that there's a real quantum advance on a therapy that's become foundational in its own right. And so maybe be interested in terms of your internal R&D team's efforts to sort of build on strengths. And I'm just citing that as one example where Pfizer's been in the CDK4/6 business in terms of investigational work for 25 years. Where else are those areas of emphasis that you think Pfizer, beyond vaccines, I guess I would ask, is sort of sustained effort that that won't ever go away for the foreseeable future?
I think our oncology pipeline is probably the best set of pipeline that we have and one of the best in the world. We are not the only ones, but we are one of the best in the world. Many people don't know that Pfizer, in terms of commercial sales, in the US is number 3. Right? In Europe, because we don't have rights to several products of companies that we acquire, we have less and we are collecting royalties, but we are number 3. And also, in terms of pipeline and commercial products, breast cancer, it is the most prevalent cancer of females, and we have the leading product. Prostate cancer is the leading cancer, the most prevalent cancer of males, and we have the leading product. We are for the first time, enter hematology with lymphoma and with the protein. And we are having, of course, Pfizer traditional superpower in chemistry of small molecules. Small molecules, probably we are the best in the world in being able to synthesize the molecule. So ADCs, large molecules, small molecules as modalities, breast cancer, prostate cancer, lung cancer, and the blood cancer are the main focus areas right now that we are having. You spoke about CDK4. CDK4, we are very encouraged. So we are pushing the envelope to put it into clinical trials as fast and as comprehensively as possible. I think it's something that you can double down if you want to take some risk. This is the area to do it. It's not the only ones in ADCs. What is coming out, including breast. I saw that there was a study of AZ that failed today in the morning. It's very, very unfortunate. But that demonstrates how challenging it is to master, let's say, probably ADCs. And we tried in Pfizer. I was fascinated with the ADC technology since years back, and we tried very hard. And actually, the first ADC that ever got licensed was a Pfizer product. But eventually, we were not able to crack the nut in a ways that can scale up. Seagen was able to crack the nut. That's why we got them, and that's why we try to protect their expertise. So breast cancer, yes, CDK4, you asked about it, we are moving very fast.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you here. I want to offer you the chance to make a closing comment or in any area, just outside the bounds of what we've had time to discuss. Again, thank you so much for being here, but you get the last word.
Oh, I want to thank you very much for this very interesting opportunity. I think science is in the hard core of our DNA as a company in Pfizer, and we have demonstrated how effective our R&D machine is. With COVID vaccine, that was one of the most profound examples, it didn't happen by chance. We had numerous of challenges, including selecting the right technology that was completely counterintuitive, having a masterful execution of a clinical development plan with 70,000 people, that was very, very challenging, being able to manufacture at scale something that had never been manufactured, and being able from 200 million doses, that was our annual production of vaccines, to 3 billion doses in the first year of the product, to resolve issues like cold chain, and to make sure that nobody thinks that that happened by chance or by luck. The year after, we did exactly the same with Paxlovid, exactly the same. So the capabilities of Pfizer, I think, are tremendous. I don't think that we are perfect in everything. I think in our research, we need to put a little bit more focus in what we do, which I think is what we are doing right now, as we are doing with oncology, but also in the rest of the therapeutic areas. But the capabilities are impressive, and I think will contribute to public health significant advancements in the next few years.
Great, beautiful. Well, that's the last word. Thanks so much, Albert.
Thank you very much.